The instant the rotors cut, it's like someone hit mute on the world. What's left is the smell of oil, heat rising off the concrete, and desert grit clinging to my sleeves. I unclip the tie-downs on the quadcopter and feel the buzz still itching in my palms, the leftover heartbeat after a sprint. At Fort Bliss, when the swarm comes home, the important part isn't applause or a speech. It's the story the data's about to tell, numbers, logs, and the quiet places nobody looks, where the truth likes to hide. Reed scrapes a plastic bin across the floor, cheeks flushed like a kid who just got chewed out by a pressure cooker. "Boss, number 7's a little off-axis," he says, still wired. I run a fingertip along the blade edge, a scratch fine as a thread. I tear a strip of colored tape and tag it. Tiny evidence of something eyes skip past. Logs don't. The break room by the hangar smells like burnt coffee and yesterday's bread. I drop the drive into the dock and watch the progress bar creep. The screen opens up like a new horizon. Thermal packets, low-level winds, sensor jitter, the flight map. I tag, file, leave a neat note for the next analyst. Light interference on NW axis. Check wind edge anomalies. Data's blunt honesty calms me. It doesn't ask permission to be true. The door gives a polite click and Whitaker breezes in like AC. Knife crease pants, mirror shine shoes. Recruiter smile. He beelines to my desk and leans in like we're old friends. "Good show," he says, and between good and show I spot my tech token in his hand, the one I'd parked on the tool tray when I swapped gloves. "I'll synthesize this for the swarm proposal," he adds, smooth as butter. "Keep the cadence on directive." He badges in, dives straight into mission report, pops executive summary. The cursor skates across sections like a hungry driver reading a drive-through menu. I stay put, one hand resting on the airframe like I'm keeping a fidgety kid still. Annex B wind edge anomalies sits there, small as a footnote. He doesn't open it. Exactly as expected. Whitaker loves the 30,000 foot view, pretty maps, none of the ugly corners where wind shifts and machines get stubborn. "You'll drop a tech sign-off for me, right?" he asks, sliding the token into his pocket like a borrowed pen. I glance at the pocket, then the screens glow. "Let me verify one point," I say. He shrugs, smile locked. Quickly, higher wants cadence, not minutiae. He pivots toward the door, tosses back. Edge autonomy, park time to run fast. The door clicks again. Reed's been holding his breath, now he lets it go. "Ma'am, your token." He leaves it unfinished, like saying it out loud would harden the mess. I sip the bitter coffee, the burnt taste crawls across my tongue like charcoal dust. "It's fine," I tell him, and it is. I've met his type since before they issued me a flight suit. Quick, tidy, cinematic, and just as quick to skip the narrow line at the bottom of the page. I don't need to shout at people like that. I need to let data do what data does best. I log in with the spare token and open the audit dashboard. The trail lays out like a field of bright grains, each speck a fingertip on the system. I add a tripwire. Any session that views executive summary without opening Annex B wind edge anomalies gets flagged, dwell time captured per page, context snapshot taken. Silent reporting, only no pop-ups, no blocks, a quiet garden that shivers when someone plucks the wrong string. "You're setting a trap," Reed asks, half joke, half worry, eyes flicking to the door like Whitaker might double back. I shake my head. "Not a trap, a mirror." He says nothing, but I see his young shoulders drop a notch. None of us wants a barracks war. We just don't want people downrange paying the bill for a glossy slide. I open the executive summary again and picture Whitaker's cursor skimming past, missing the tiny fleck of data like pollen. Pollen sticks to your fingers when you grab a flower too fast. Under fluorescence, it glows. You can't deny it. You can only pretend you don't see it. I'm done letting anyone pretend. Outside, the sun is so white-hot the runway wavers like boiling water. A trainer drone ghosts across, its rotors pencil scratching at the wind. I step out to check the blade I taped. That little scratch steadies me. It reminds me that detail lives where people don't look, and my job is to pull it back into the light. Back inside, I add one more rule: log session timestamps and reading depth. The console throws a green check, like the quiet nod a mechanic gives in a home garage, all snugged down. My back unclenches. I tack a neutral line onto the end of the executive summary. If wind edge exceeds threshold X, reference Annex B before deploying swarm. No accusation, just a small rock placed exactly where the current must bend. DFAC doing BBQ at lunch, Reed says, cracking a soda, the tab snapping like a dry pebble. You coming? I smile. I'm hungry, but I've got questions Brisket can't answer. We'll see, I say. In my head, I'm already in a different room. Long table, big screens, chairs in rows. At the head, Brigadier General Cortez doesn't smile and asks a question that's one clean line long. Who viewed? What did they open, and for how long? I can hear her in the desert heat, cold and fair as steel. I save the settings and lock the screen. My swarm sits quiet on the rack, but their story just started. If someone wants to go fast by skipping the ugly parts of the data, they'll carry the pollen on their hands. I don't need to chase them. I just need to open the door and let the light in. Dad's garage was about the size of a mechanic's pride. Not huge, but big enough for what mattered: wrenches, rags, an old radio, and a thermos of coffee black as ink. Winters in Washington drizzled a steady Morse code on the tin roof. He said the sound helped him hear engines better. I learned to listen with him, not with my ears, but with fingers on the frame, feeling the faint mosquito buzz in the bones. Noise is a confession, he'd say, clicking on a flashlight and tucking a peppermint into my pocket. I didn't get it then. I just remember the tilt of his head, the pause and the quiet. Okay, give it another half turn. When I moved into UAVs, that lesson ported almost verbatim into the digital world. Noise became extra data, log lines that look like nonsense until you're patient with them. Then they tell on the error. That's why I chose this work. The feeling of touching truth buried in a jumble of numbers, like reaching into a box of hardware and somehow grabbing the exact screw you need. At school, I brought the garage habit. Listen first, talk later. During our first auto flight control check, low-level winds kept shifting. The instructor wanted us to tick the stable box because the sim gave a pretty track. I watched the vibration plot and saw one tiny spike, like a hidden blemish, right at the wind edge. I raised my hand. We should step down or delay. He arched a brow. Run the checklist. I didn't argue. I opened the annex, the one people accidentally skip, and pointed to the boundary condition. We got dinged for breaking procedure. That night, Morales, already a CWO, found me bent over the plots. She asked one simple question. Are you sure? I handed her the data, no smoke, no charms. She nodded. Present it again tomorrow. Only what you can defend to a board. We didn't get our points back, but the platoon next door avoided a tail dip by taking the delay. I learned something that never leaves you. In the Army, being right doesn't always earn a pat on the back, but it makes deposits in the bank of trust. And trust carries you through days when the people with rank skim a summary page and call it good. My first night on the test range added another callous. The wind shifted slow, like someone easing a volume knob. I saw 3 tidy cycles in the logs, each too short for the baseline model to count as risk. I flagged it, recommended pushing the launch window. The duty officer, no time, run it. The drone hit the ripple and shook like a fever patient. It didn't crash, but the camera lost lock for long enough that, in a real mission, a rifle squad would have been burned. I got chewed for messing with reporting structure by jumping into a channel that wasn't mine. Morales pulled me out to the catwalk, a cigarette still glowing in somebody's ashtray. "You patched a hole," she said quietly, "but next time stitch it with the right thread. Truth isn't just right, it has to be clean." Since then, I've carried two tools, Dad's steel ruler and Morales's clean evidence. They're like the edges of a runway I have to stay between. On one side, the instinct to jump in and save. On the other, the discipline to present so no one has an excuse to dismiss. I dropped the habit of debating people in rooms. I learned to let the data talk, and when it talks, it needs a voice you can't doubt. Years later, after enough quiet wins, I finally understood why everyone groans at the Annex. The Annex is the long liner notes of a song, skip it, and the track turns into an ad. I started writing products that force a short walk from the summary into reality's rough edge, a little footbridge from neat to necessary. It's not a trick, it's courtesy to the truth. So when Whitaker said, "Edge autonomy, it's time to go fast," I heard an old line from the range echo back. "No time, run it." I'm not doing that loop again. I did what I know. I built a mirror. The tripwire I set in part one wasn't to humiliate anyone. It was to protect people I haven't met yet, the dusty boots who'll stand under this sky soon enough. I don't know their names. I just know that if a swarm falls because someone skipped a wind edge assumption, those names end up on a plaque and every buzzword goes quiet. Morales dropped by the shop that afternoon, unannounced. She leaned in the doorway, hands in pockets, eyes on the audit dashboard. "What'd you change?" she asked. I walked her through each rule: flag exec-only sessions, record dwell time, capture context, emphasize no blocking, no faking. She nodded. "Good, don't turn data into a net that snags people, make it a mirror." She was quoting me back to me, and that felt like a handshake. "They still might not listen," I said. Morales shrugged. "Then make them look." As she tapped the empty square on the log view. "When the lights come up, don't say much. Show what you have. No emotion, no snark. Don't compare people, compare the data before and after the decision." I wrote her sentence word for word on my notebook cover, something to read later instead of speaking too soon. Reed came in with a tray of fresh rotors, that new plastic smell sharp in the air. "Boss, wind sims loaded. You want the edge case runs? Run at threshold X and X+, I said. "If we apply the major's plan," he asked. "If we apply it," I said, "let's see how long your bees hold formation in the first 4 hours." He swallowed. No more jokes. That night I sat alone with the plots. The little spikes came out like late stars, each one pricking the dark. I thought about Dad, waiting for rain to drum the roof before he called for another half-turn. I thought about losing points for opening the Annex, about the face of some infantryman when the camera drops lock. I thought about the word clean, and I promised myself again, my trap won't have a smell. Just metal and coffee, the scent of a garage where people fix what others break. My phone buzzed on the desk, the screen lighting with a neatly stamped order line. Briefing, Edge Autonomy Swarm Accelerated. Location, Hangar. Presenter, Madge G. Whitaker. Below it, Jen M. Cortez may attend. I looked at May and smiled. May is enough. I killed the alert and the lights. In the dark, the numbers still glowed faint as fireflies tangled in netting. Tomorrow they'll fly into the briefing room, carrying their own pollen. My job is to crack the window and get out of their way. I named the new folder Red Hive because it felt like a separate box where I could watch wing beats without the rest of the system buzzing through it. Not for hiding secrets, just for laying habits bare. On the internal server, it shows up as a clean square amid the glyph jungle, provisional logs/Red Hive. Inside, I drop in the latest flight packages, all legit, all signed. Each package sits in 3 layers: executive summary, tech detail, and Annex B, the cranky corner reserved for wind edge anomalies. I don't delete, fudge, or predify a thing. I only shape the surface so people taking shortcuts can't pretend the missing steps never existed. The executive in Red Hive reads like a neat one-pager. Objective, conditions, preliminary results. I keep that structure, then add one dry sentence at the bottom that politely points to Annex B, an invitation to click one more tab. In tech detail, I leave the vibration plots exactly as they are, every burr and snag. Annex B gets the unfriendly stuff. Boundary wins the wrestling match between noise floor and real signal, and the threshold X where a swarm starts to wobble apart. Not dramatic, just complicated. The kind of thing that makes impatient readers tired. Run the hurried user script, I tell Reed. He knows. He opens a mock session, reads only the executive, scrolls to key results, closes it. On the audit board a spec flares. View exec only equals true, annex opened equals false, dwell time equals 4. Once I pop the snapshot, the screen is parked on the summary, cursor hovering near download slide deck. Good, I say. Now the patient user. He opens exec, hops to Annex B, zooms the wind edge chart, lingers on the boundary note. The second spec blossoms into a chain. Annex opened equals true. Dwell time equals 2M plus. Zoom events equals 3. Can't help it. A little cool air moves across my face, like someone finally cracked a window. I add a gentle rule. Once Annex B is opened, suggest a Winterumble correlation link into tech detail so they can see how sensor jitter maps to edge wins. No suggestion shows up for people who never touched Annex. Not punishment, coaching patience. Dad's garage taught me most folks don't have time to stare. Give them the right flashlight and they usually will. Morales arrives while I'm locking down permissions. I walk her through it. Red Hive doesn't hide data. It restores context so the executive can't fake safety. I open a sample and tap assumptions, 3 pillars, the third one blunt. If wind edge exceeds threshold X, all executive conclusions require Annex B verification. Morales lifts her chin. Keep that sentence sharp. PowerPoint people hate long lines, but sometimes a long line keeps them from stepping off a cliff. I grin, like a handrail. She nods. Annex B is the handrail. Then we do the hard part, keep it clean. Who can edit? No one outside our tech group. Any edit logs a signature and a reason. I integrity check hashes between Red Hive and the archive, so even a 1-pixel wiggle gets caught. Morales makes me recite the oath. Don't change numbers. Don't import nicer numbers. Don't downsample a chart to sand off an ugly spike. Don't delete a meaningful note. I say it like a pledge. She nods. That's a mirror. Reed lays out the bench like a tiny or main screen for exec, side screen for annex, another box for audit, a spare switch just in case. He color tags cables straight as a parade line. Think they'll open the annex? He asks, hand on the mouse like it's a small animal. I watch the system clock tick. Depends, some people treat data like a map, some treat it like a permission slip. He squints. Permission for what? Permission to skip the hard question, I say. Permission to go fast. I spin up 2 simulations. In Whitaker's plan, the swarm rides the wind's edge to keep tempo. In the cautious plan, we step back a few units and auto-peel when the sensors cross threshold. On the chart, both traces overlap for a while, then split like tire tracks in a curve. The fast plan looks prettier for 10-15 minutes. Then the wind edge creeps, and little loss markers start peppering the map, each one a drone losing lock or falling out of control. I don't paint it red. Red would look like I'm selling fear. Truth weighs enough without makeup. Morales studies it. If they claim a compensation algorithm, you got logs. I shake my head. No build, just slides. She doesn't flinch. Then don't say they're wrong. Say there's no evidence here of compensation. Put the empty box on screen and let them notice it's empty. I jot it down. Present a gap as a gap, not an indictment. That's the discipline that keeps the fight on level data ground. One more feature. Context snapshots when someone downloads the deck without opening Annex B. The system pins the exact on-screen state for later. Retention stays inside SOP. Keep it just long enough for an inquiry, then auto-purge. No fences crossed. If I screw this up, the mirror becomes a camera and I don't cross that line. Before I close shop, I walk through Red Hive like a curious user. The executive is tidy, confident, with a pebble of text nudging you toward Annex. Click, Annex pops open without fanfare, all gristle and charts. In my head, dad again. Noise is a confession. Here the noise is a row of ugly little barbs, the ones anyone who's ever turned a stubborn bolt learns to respect. I drag the virtual ruler from that noise to threshold X and pause. It won't wow a room. It will save one. Reed's phone buzzes. He flashes me the update. Briefing. Edge Autonomy Swarm Accelerated just changed attendees. Jen M. Cortez attending. He whistles under his breath. I don't. It feels like someone just laminated the mirror, so the reflection won't crack when it gets punched. Last run, I say. Reed replays the hurried user. The audit spec lights up exactly as built. I nod, dim the Annex screen, leave the executive half open, like a door left on the latch. It's that odd feeling of sliding a deadbolt before you step out, secure, and already knowing an impatient hand will be back on the knob. Out on the flight line, the wind veers, carrying warm metal from sun-soaked airframes. I stand in the threshold, one foot in shadow, one in glare. Red Hive hums behind me, the same steady electricity as Dad's old garage. I picture who's coming, a quick-handed major, a quiet general, a few staff officers sanded down by schedules. I don't need them to love data. I need them to look. And when they look into this mirror, if there's pollen on their fingers, the light will make it glow. A ping in the corner of the monitor. Briefing starts in 10 minutes. I kill it. No countdowns. I trash the empty coffee cup, straighten the cable labels, check my uniform lines. There's no magic for the conference room, only consistency. I tap the desk edge, cool wood, a reminder to let the data speak. Then I lock Red Hive, grab my notebook, and walk toward the industrial fans breathing like the base itself. The hangar is lit like a makeshift stage. 3 rows of folding chairs, a white screen, horn speakers hanging tired from the rafters. The AC growls low, mixing new plastic with old machine oil. I pick a seat against the wall where I can watch the room and the door. Reed camps in the back, busy with cables but really glued to the audit console on the auxiliary laptop. On the table up front, Red Hive's executive summary sits open halfway, the polite little pointer to Annex B lying there like a quiet dare. Walk through if you mean it. Whitaker enters like an overture, long stride, no crease out of place, lav mic clipped just so. Good morning, team. He smiles, warm enough to hush the whispering. First slide pops. Edge Autonomy Swarm Accelerated Cadence. Blue background, a neat swarm icon in formation. I hear the first clacks of keyboards as folks open notebooks. Then come the classics. Kilt chain acceleration, sensor-to-shooter latency, spectrum dominance. He speaks like a man who's rehearsed in a mirror, every sentence with a landing strip, every graphic with an arrow pointing toward a shinier future. When key results comes up, I know he's parked on the exact page Red Hive's snapshot loves. A tidy box of bullet points and graphs so clean they could sell shaving cream. I raise my hand. On boundary conditions, Whitaker gives me the traffic cop palm and a service smile. We'll handle Q and a after warrant officer park. Gotta keep cadence. I lower my hand. Somewhere above, a dusty ceiling fan clears its throat for a single rasp, like a small animal warning from the corner. He rolls into operational tempo. Track points glow like highway lights, no gaps, no smudges. The wind edge trace, of course, is nowhere to be seen. This is the part for people who like the sky smooth. Whitaker zooms a cluster and talks adaptive autonomy like it's an old friend that can dodge every pothole by instinct. I write down one line only. Wind assumption source. I pin it to my chest like a name tag and wait for someone to press it. The rear door opens. A stripe of hallway light cuts across the concrete. Brigadier General Cortez slides in with no wasted motion. She doesn't sit up front. She sits mid-room, where she can hear both the speakers and the whispers. Whitaker tightens his voice a hair, as if he just poured higher octane into the tank. He flips through risk management in exactly 3 beats, skimming the word assumptions like a speed bump he's learned to ignore. I raise my hand again, only halfway this time. He sees it, gives a small no. "We'll keep momentum," he says, adding one more notch of brightness to the smile. I let it drop. You need enough pollen on the fingers before the lights make it glow. Cortez doesn't take notes. She toggles her gaze between the screen and the speaker's mouth the way shooters pace targets on the range. Calm, straight, almost no blink. Deployment window appears, its timelines lined up like white pickets in front of a suburban lawn. Before he can glide into success criteria, her voice slices the room clean. Not loud, just sharp. "Major Whitaker, what wind edge assumptions did you use and what's the source?" The hangar's sound drops one click, like somebody turned the radio down. Whitaker smiles and points to a small box in the footer. "General, we used normalized historical datasets adapted to local models. Full details are in the technical package." "Source," she repeats, same tone. "USUK's baseline plus several internal flights." He answers, quick. "Did you open Annex B for this dataset before confirming the executive conclusions?" She follows, head tilting a fraction. The lav wire at his lapel seems to slacken. "I reviewed the technical summaries," he says, "and drew on prior deployment experience." Cortez gives the smallest nod. No praise, no sting. "Continue." Eyes turn back to the screen, but I know the right question just sank to the bottom of the tank. It'll hit silt, stir it up, and rise with grit. Whitaker moves to command relationships, sets people and tasks like chess pieces. Timelines, contingencies, everything smooth enough that I can almost hear the crunch of grit in my own teeth if I bit down. In the slide margin, Annex B sits like a low step. No one takes it. Q and opens. First hand, spectrum allocation. Second hand, deconflict with ground units. I leave them be. He's good at those, born to answer questions just technical enough to be reassuring without touching the artery. A staff officer gently asks, "What's our unit's wind edge threshold XVS baseline?" Whitaker says, "Accounted for," and veers into, "We can adjust on the fly." Can hangs in the air like a stare that isn't nailed down. Cortez doesn't ask again. She checks her watch, looks once more at the screen. "Thank you. Load the final into the system," she says, rising. Before she goes, she pauses half a beat, eyes sliding over the back row where Reed sits. I don't know what she sees. I just feel a cool streak up my neck like when the desert wind flips direction without warning. The room dissolves into chair scrape, paper shuffle, scattered Sir S. Whitaker fronts me, smile thin as a razor. "Park, you'll drop the technical sign-off. We need to close." I study the knot of his tie and remember the red hive snapshot. View exec only equals true, annex opened equals false, dwell time shorter than a deep breath. "I'll do a final scrub," I say. "We don't have much time," he lowers his voice. "Cadence is the order." I nod without promising. He leaves a cold cologne trail behind, a reminder that some people think surface is the whole game. Reed is waiting by the back door. "Boss," he says, pushing the aux laptop toward me. On the audit board, Madge GW is a bright scratch. Opened executive summary, scrolled to key results, downloaded the slide deck, closed. Did not open Annex B, did not touch tech detail. Dwell time 3, 7s on the conclusion page. I exhale slowly and hear my pulse tick like a clock. The pollens on his hands, bright enough you don't need a magnifier. I print a trimmed log and clip it into my notebook. Dad's garage taught me to fit the right tool into the right notch. Morale's taught me to keep the tool clean. The data needs no polish from me. It needs 4 words, no, sir. And I'll say them where they belong, not in this echoing hangar, but behind a closed door with steady AC and a table flat enough to lay the truth on without it sliding. Outside, the heat hits like an oven door swinging open. The flight line shivers. A trainer drone skates overhead, its shadow brushing the concrete like a strip of charcoal. I zip the notebook into my pocket. A list builds itself in my head. Files to send, recipients, subject lines. My steps quicken, like a flight path just drew itself under my boots. At the end of that path are the 2 words I've trained for through years of listening to noise. No, sir. My temp office is a sand-colored box with an AC unit that purrs like a cat dreaming. On the desk, coffee's gone cold, bitterness that smells like an old memory. I set my notebook down and print the trimmed audit. Each line is a digital footprint. User, page, dwell time. In the corner of the screen, Red Hive's snapshot freezes the exact moment the cursor sits on key results. The download slide deck button lit up like it's proud of itself. I clip the page on top, the way you pin a name tag on a quiet witness. 2 knocks. Whitaker slips in and shuts the door with his wrist, that courteous smile rolling across his face and stopping dead center. "Park, I need your technical sign-off," he says, voice half the volume it had in the hangar. "The general wants cadence. I want to make sure you get credit." I study his tie, stitched straight as a runway. "No, sir." The words land on the carpet and don't bounce. He blinks like he misheard. "Excuse me." "No, sir," I say, clean and clear. "I won't sign this one." The air thins a notch. He sits uninvited. "Park, this is bigger than you think. We need tempo. The landing force is already keyed to this timeline. If we slip because of one inconvenient annex, you know what that does to the promotion math." I flip the notebook open and slide him the tidy log. "You spent 7 seconds on the executive summary. You did not open Annex B. You did not touch tech detail. That's the data. My recommendation, open Annex B and run the wind edge scenario." His smile narrows. "Are you teaching me how to do my job?" "No, sir," I answer. "I'm refusing to sign off on a process that wasn't followed." He stands. "Don't make this personal. I can make sure your name lands in the credits." "Data doesn't do credits," I cut in, easy as snapping a rotten fishing line. "Data does true or false." His face stiffens, then softens like wax under a hot lamp. "I'll take this upstairs," he says, hand on the knob. "Good," I say. "So will I." Door closed, I swivel back and open a new document. Subject, recommendation for technical inquiry, Edge Autonomy Swarm. Classification banner up top, short and square. I write 3 paragraphs, no glitter adjectives. Summary, audit logs confirm the approver did not open Annex B before extracting conclusions. Recommend independent review. Evidence. Attached audit extract, session ID, path, dwell, page snapshot, and preliminary SIM output showing destabilization when wind edge threshold X. Action requested. Convene a technical inquiry chaired by a technical panel. Require log/build evidence for any cited compensation algorithm. Attachments. Redacted PDF of the logs, the snapshot SIM files for the 2 scenarios. Reed messages me a still from a flightline camera, our bees sitting on the rack. Not for the packet, for my gut. I don't include it. I delete it. The heart belongs in the chest, not in the attachments. 2. B.G. Cortez's office, Chief of Engineering, Base Legal. C.C. CWO Morales. I turn on read receipts because I believe in light. Before I send, I patrol the fence line word by word. No motive casting, no personal shots, no adjectives. Verbs and numbers only. Send. The spinner turns once and vanishes. It's like a curtain lifts. First reply blinks in, received. 3 minutes later, technical inquiry, pending approval. A few more, approved. Schedule TBD. I lean back, the AC humming underfoot like catwalk steel. Somewhere out there, Whitaker is typing his email too, full of cadence. Mission need. Risk assumed. I'm not. I pull the whiteboard off the wall, time to build a murder board, read halls in a box. I unroll a mini map and pin it along a timeline. Red Hive access, right arrow exec viewed, right arrow slide deck downloaded, right arrow session closed. Beneath, I tag cards. Annex B not opened. Dwell 3, 7's, wind assumption source, USUX baseline plus internal no logged evidence. Top left, I box off a big blank square in black marker. Compensation algorithm evidence, empty. Morales steps in as I finish the box. She reads and nods. Good, let absence speak, don't speak for it. We run a replay. Reed at the aux keyboard pulls the sequence like he's cutting a news package. Executive right arrow audit zoom on dwell right arrow preliminary sim, where the stability curve peels away as wind edge rises. I give the cut sign before the 40% rolls fully on screen. Morales reminds me, don't deliver the verdict in rehearsal. Let the number be born in the room. I drop my hand and stick a post-it to the bezel. Do not over-narrate. At the tail end of the board, I pin a draft SOP we've been hammering on. Two-Analyst sign-off for high-risk edge cases. Not a victory banner, just a note that we're trying to teach the system to mend itself. Another post-it. Annex B is the handrail. Reed snorts. You really gonna bring that into the room? No, I say. It's for me, so I don't push anyone off the ledge. A rumor pings the team chat. Whitaker has backing, and the inquiry will be procedural to close the loop. Morales doesn't read rumors, she reads calendars. Her phone buzzes with a line as dry as chalk. Technical inquiry tomorrow. Panel lead, BGM Cortez. Reed starts to whistle, then clamps it when he sees my face. I nod, not surprised, not relieved. Schedules are schedules, numbers are numbers. Back at my desk, I draft a final cover memo to read. Exact click order in the session, screen sequence, lines I will say and will not say. I type. Don't use wrong, don't use lie. Use. No evidence, annex not opened, the log shows. Then, don't look at people, look at the screen. I know the second my pulse will try to jump into my mouth, I tie it to the checklist. Evening slides into the door frame and turns the room the color of an old garage photo. I brew a fresh pot, just enough bitterness to wake my mouth. The murder board on the wall doesn't look deadly. A straight timeline, a few arrows, one whale-sized empty box. But the test range taught me the heaviest part of a story is often the gap. Tomorrow, when the inquiry lights come up, that gap will cast a shadow across the table. Ma'am, go get some rack time, Reed says, sweeping stray screws into a cup. I check the time, weigh it. After one last walk through, I circle the table, lock the workstation, label the cables, adjust the chair back, square the notebook. 1930. I pull the door and kill the lights. The hallway smells like new paint and paper. At the far end, a crooked safety poster hangs lazy. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. I straighten it, the tape whispers. I don't need fast, I need smooth. Tomorrow I'll make the data run so clean the only thing anyone hears is the wind tapping the doorframe of the truth. The inquiry room is cold, like a safe with the door left open. Long table, straight back wooden chairs, screens in a row, each one a little window into the same forest of numbers. I sit on the left with a notebook, a pencil, and a glass of water. Reed is behind me. hand hovering over the mouse like a crane operator waiting for a signal. Morales leans back, silent, eyes locked on the tiny red REC dot glowing in the corner of the recorder. Whitaker is canted across from me, tie tight, face flat as a glossy slide. At the head, Brigadier General Cortez gives a short nod, the kind that wastes no smile. "Begin," she says. I stand. "Panel, my order of presentation is access logs, reading evidence, and wind edge simulations. I'll offer no personal conclusions." I signal and Reed brings up screen 1, Red Hive audit board. The timeline appears like a white neon rope. Login. Documents opened, dwell times. This is user Madge GW in the package used for the proposal. I mark 3 ticks. Open executive summary, scroll to key results, download slide deck, session ends. A tech officer asks, Annex B. I hold my hand steady. Not opened. The Annex indicator glows dim like a lamp that never got power. Read, roll the replay. The cursor appears, skates fast, stops right on the conclusion box. The corner clock counts up and halts. 3, 7 seconds. A chair creaks somewhere on the panel. Data doesn't speak to motive, I add, only to the fact that the executive summary was viewed for 3, 7 seconds and Annex B was not open prior to downloading the slides. I don't look at Whitaker. I align my pencil with the table's edge like a tiny level to keep my voice from tilting. "Show tech detail," Cortez says. Reed brings up screen 2. The vibration over time plots appear. No alarm red, just cool, indifferent lines. I point to the notes. Wind edge threshold X is here. On recent flights, we recorded persistent oscillations at the boundary, not long enough for the baseline to count at low resolution, but obvious in Annex B. A panel member asks, "Why put the Annex warning at the end of the executive?" "Because it's a handrail," I answer. "If you need to go further, you use it." Whitaker clears his throat. "With respect, I reviewed the technical summaries. We plan to deploy a compensation algorithm in the final phase." Cortez tilts her head. "Do you have build logs or a test run?" I flip a page and nod to Reed. Screen 3 fills with the boxed callout from our murder board. Compensation algorithm, evidence. Empty. I keep my tone even. Within the briefing package, there is no evidence of implementation or test logs for a compensation algorithm. If a separate trial exists, I recommend submitting it for the panel. Silence takes weight like setting a steel plate on the table. "Run the simulation." Cortez nods. Reed loads Scenario 1, accelerated deployment, swarm riding the wind's edge to keep tempo. On the map, the drone icons move like a school of fish, smooth for a time. Early on, I narrate, it looks good, but once the wind edge drifts across threshold X, stability peels off like a tire biting sand at the shoulder. Loss markers start to pepper the display. The map never turns red, it just gets dense. Multiple seeds run. On average, I take a breath in the first 4 hours. Roughly 40% lose lock or fall into uncontrolled escape. The follow-on effect is a signature that exposes the supported infantry element. A panelist squints. 40%. Roughly, I say, within the attached confidence bounds, details in Annex, model and parameters in tech detail. I've avoided color coding to reduce priming. Morales gives a small nod and anchor set. Scenario 2, cautious recommendation. Reed flips. The swarm stands off a bit, with an auto peel when vibration crosses X. The early curve looks less pretty, but when the wind creeps, the formation holds. Failures drop to within acceptable thresholds. I don't say safe. I say, per the panel's criteria, risk is within bounds. Whitaker leans in. Your model leans on historical wind assumptions. I can tune the algorithm to. Cortez cuts him, not sharp, just straight. Major, in this room we evaluate what is on the table. If you have an algorithm, bring evidence. His mouth opens, then closes. My grip wants to choke the pencil. I release, lay both palms flat. This isn't triumph. It's a very cold emptiness landing exactly where we drew the box on the murder board. Legal asks process. Warrant Officer Park, does Red Hive and your audit exceed SOP? I read the lines like road signs. No. Logs record who slash what slash how long. When a slide deck is downloaded without opening Annex B, a context snapshot is captured. No user blocking, no content alteration, no retention beyond policy. Purpose? To set a mirror in front of the data so habits see themselves. Cortez leans back, eyes making a slow circuit of the table. Enough, she says. No further questions to me. She turns to Whitaker. Major, anything further on the data? He exhales through his nose. I maintain that the mission requires speed, and that Warrant Officer Park's team is sometimes overly cautious. Noted, Cortez replies. But operations run on data. Here, the data shows Annex B unopened, insufficient review time on the summary, and a model projecting risk beyond threshold. Next steps: suspend the current rollout, order an independent review, and if a compensation algorithm exists, produce evidence. One dry tap of her pen. Data has no rank. The last sound falls like a steel door taking the bar. Read kills the sim. The screens fade to gray. I sit, knees feeling like they've just run a distance. Morales's hand taps my shoulder, enough pressure to say hold. I think of the scratched rotor blade I taped earlier in the week, a tiny cut that proves detail lives on the edge of the knife. I just held that edge up to the light, and it cut exactly where it needed to. When the room thins out, Whitaker stays, eyes pinned to the binder I just closed. You think you won? He asks, voice low. I look at the square of light on the tabletop between us. I think the data got heard, I say. He laughs, hollow, like crushing an empty soda can. We'll meet again. I don't answer. I stack papers into a plastic sleeve. At the door, Cortez pauses. Warrant Officer, she says, see me tomorrow. We're going to talk automated verification. No praise, no pat on the back. She just opens another door. The hallway air is warmer paper and new paint. In my pocket, the pencil bumps my wrist like a small stake. I think of Dad's garage and his line, noise is a confession. In here, the noise spoke. And this time, it didn't need me to raise my voice. Cortez's office is cold the next morning, cold like the inside of a scanner. She doesn't circle. A clipped stack sits centered on her desk, the binder clip throwing a small glint under the light. This is the notice, she says, voice level. Accelerated rollout is suspended. Major Whitaker's elevated access is revoked pending review. Engineering will stand up an autonomy verification cell under my authority. You and CWO Morales will build the framework. The top sheet reads access revocation, temporary, her e-signature stamped above the word. Scope is blunt. Sandbox, mission report, any system that pushes slide decks outside the unit. No victory music, just the tap of her pen once on the table. We don't fix people, Cortez adds. We fix the system. She slides to a second packet. AVC, 3 lines, 1 independent cross-check on risk-sensitive assumptions. 2, Annex must be opened before any technical sign-off. 3, light audit deleted on schedule. Each clause drops into place like a screw biting into a frame. And finally, she says, Two-Analyst sign-off for wind edges, boundary terrain, any condition the baseline model can't count at low resolution. 2 signatures, 2 sets of eyes, 1 shared responsibility. Half a beat. I want the SOP this week. I walk out with a fresh armload of checklists and a hallway that feels longer than yesterday, maybe because the paper in my hand stretches the floor away. Morales is waiting by the water cooler. So it's real, she says. I hand her the charter. She reads fast, like a tradeswoman scanning a blueprint. Build guardrails, not razor wire, she says. That's how systems survive. Reed appears with a coil of cabled neat as a bakery loaf. "Boss, can we get a second monitor approved for AVC?" he asks, eyes bright at the new acronym. "Yes," I say, "but first buy a big whiteboard, the sliding kind, and a fresh box of dry erase markers." Our AVC office is a spare room in the old tech wing, cream walls, a window on the flight line. Reed and I start building the hive, a simple poster on the door in 3 bold lines, verify assumptions. Open annex. Audit light. I split the tables into policy and playback. In policy, I open the SOP and write an opening that reads like a promise. AVC exists to install a handrail for data users crossing slick spots. No blame. No slowdowns for their own sake. Only smoothing. So fast doesn't mean falling. Morales nods and trims my poetry into crisp army sentences. We nail down the 2-signature rule. Any summary touching boundary variables needs 2 independent sign-offs. One from someone who didn't build the deck, and one not in the proposer's chain. No second signature, no publish. For annex required, Reed codes a small hook. When the PDF summary is open, the system requires confirmation that the paired annex was opened before send unlocks. We don't hard block operations. We block the habit of closing tabs. The touchiest part is audit. I keep the creed mirror, not camera. We log who / what / how long, and we auto-delete after the inquiry window. No keystroke logging. No screens except a context snapshot if someone downloads a deck without opening the annex. Morales adds a line in bold. Do not use audit to rate people beyond safety purposes. I think of yesterday's empty algorithm box, how that gap spoke and spoke enough. I don't want a system that learns too much about the nervous fingers of an officer in a hurry. By mid-afternoon, the base-wide notice goes out. The distro inbox crackles like oil spitting in a pan. The public section is short. Edge Autonomy Swarm Proposal suspended for review. Autonomy Verification Cell established. Two-Analyst sign-off effective immediately for boundary scenarios. No names in the open text. I silently thank whoever wrote it that way. We need fewer names and more principles. Whitaker doesn't evaporate. I meet him in a corridor where the sun through louvers paints ruler-straight stripes. He looks at me like I'm a broken tool swapped for new model. "You won a round," he says, shoulders too light for the weight of it. I don't answer. I won't nail a man to his worst minute. When he's gone, Reed lets out, "Thought he'd, I dunno, blow up." "The tide's out," I say. Now the rocks show. The first rock is the SOP. Riding one isn't as glamorous as pushing a stick, but it lays track. Morales and I argue 3 times over a single modal. Must or should open the annex. We hammer in must, with a mission bypass, allowed only if the signer answers the panel with logs inside 3 days. No razor wire, but a pen waiting at the end of the road. By day's end, the AVC room looks more like a classroom than a command post. Whiteboard arrowed up, paper coffee cups stacked into a little tower, Reed labeling cables like planting flags on a map. Morales ducks out early for legal. I stay, nudging a letter on the door poster until open annex lines up straight. Stupid tiny things like that keep me upright for the big ones. A ping in the group chat. "DFAC BBQ tonight." Reed types, adding a lopsided flame emoji. Smoke finds me at the back patio before I see the grills. Racks sizzle, fat snaps and blooms like tiny fireworks. Long tables stacked with paper plates, corn, buns, slick bottles of ketchup and hot sauce. A beat-up speaker dribbles an old country song, the singer's voice a rope looped around a dusty sunset. The ma'am-s float past light as breeze. I'm not that hungry, but I eat. Heat and smoke scrape my tongue clean of checklists. Reed fumbles the tongs, drops a rib, sighs. I hand him a new plate. "What the data teach you today?" I ask. He grins. "Don't grab too fast." A young private with high-end tight hair and eyes still set to new hovers with a tray. "Ma'am," he says, hesitant, "they say you're a AVC. I don't really get what the annex is. I just know it's long." I laugh. True, it's long. It's also the wind direction note on a hiking map. You can still walk without it, but when you hit the cliff, surprise. He nods, less lost. "Come by AVC tomorrow," I add. "We'll read a wind plot, it doesn't hurt." Dusk drops hard. String lights blink on, warm and low. Somebody tells a story about a trainee UAV planting sideways. A whole table heaves with laughter. The sound spreads like heat pushing the day back, like beer foam turning to glitter. At a farther table, I spot Whitaker alone with an unopened soda. I don't walk over. Not tonight. We're packing up when my phone buzzes, training office email. Invitation, evening workshop, reading data in the noise intro for new enlistees. Time, place, flight line, weekend night. Instructor, me, 2 blanks to fill, learning objective and closing message. I look at Reed. "Write my objective." He jokes, I nod. "Write 1 line, learn to open 1 more tab. Night wind in the desert smells like cooled iron." I stroll the flight line, our electric bees lying dusty sleek on their racks, quiet as letters waiting to be read right. Tomorrow we start teaching rookies to hear noise as confession, not to make them paranoid, but to show where to lay a hand and listen. At AVC's door, the open annex poster is straight now. I kill the lights and pull the door. The hinge whispers like a rotor far away. The tide has gone out. The rocks are up, and the path between them is showing, crooked, but wide enough for people and for data to walk side by side. Night drops over Fort Bliss like a thin blanket that smells of dust. Along the flight line, a string of warm bulbs sways in the desert breeze, stretching the drone's quiet shadows long, like letters waiting to be read. I roll a whiteboard to the edge of the pad, sketch a simple time axis and a trail of vibration dots. Reed sets up the portable screen, checks the speaker, then slaps an AVC sticker on a table leg, black letters on white, as plain as a promise. He tilts his head. Looks like a trail sign. "Good," I say. Annex is the sign at the switchback. The rookies trickle in stiff boots, smiles that haven't learned where to hide. I hand out a 1-pager, vibration over time on the left, wind edge with threshold X on the right. "No test tonight," I open. "Just 1 habit. When the summary goes quiet at the critical part, open 1 more tab." They laugh the way theory makes you laugh. I don't blame them. Before I learned to hear noise, I laughed like that in Dad's garage. We start with a trainer drone. Reed rolls it out, powers on, the status light blinks like a stray firefly. I set them in a half circle. "This is the most boring story," I say. "Swarm up, do the job, swarm down. You believe it's fine because nobody yelled fire, but the data whispers the whole time. Listen." I throw a sample log on the screen, steady rhythm, a few tiny spikes. Who sees the problem? Silence, then a careful hand. The spikes, they're even like someone tapping something. I nod. Like someone nudging the wind knob. At low resolution, they're too small to count. You need the annex to see it. I click into Annex B. The zoomed plot shows hair-thin scratches along the wind edge, the twin to the scratch I taped over on a rotor days ago. A scratch won't crash a drone, I say, but it tells a story about habit. The hurried treat a summary like a license to go fast. The careful treat the annex like a handrail. I pass a dry erase to a private and have him connect the spikes. A shaky line emerges, turns into rhythm. The group lets out a small O, like the string lights just found 1 more notch of bright. Morales shows midway, a thin stack of paper in hand. She stands beside me and watches the rookies the way she watched me once. No speech. She just lifts the AVC SOP to the page that says Two-Analyst sign-off and taps the line. Must open annex before approval. The tap lands like a nail driven true. I turn back to the group. No one's asking you to love data. We're asking you to respect it. A young specialist grins. Ma'am, does data have feelings? No, I say, but the people leaning on it do. Second drill, 2 sims side by side, one fast deploy, one cautious. I don't say which is better. I just ask them to mark the moment they knew to open the annex. The wind edge inches. On the pretty run, a dusting of lost lock icons appears like a light rain. On the other, the swarm steps back and holds formation. When we stop, I ask, which moment? A private taps the first stutter. Here, he says. The summary still looks smooth, but my gut doesn't. I smile. Congrats, you just picked up a new sense, a gut that knows when to open the annex. At the far corner where the wind holds the pennant tight, I set up a small table, paper cups, a thermos, and my old steel mug from home, the garage souvenir. I pour half a cup and hand it to the same specialist. In the garage, my dad said, noise is a confession. Take a bitter sip, stand still for a minute, lay a hand on the frame, then decide if it needs another half turn. She drinks, winces, looks at the plot again. Her face goes flat and calm like fresh screeded concrete. I get it, she says. Don't turn because I'm impatient. Reed swaps a battery, tightens the cap, plucks each blade like a guitar string. I notice the rookies watching that habit, the way his fingertips glide the edge and pause to listen. Habits are culture in ghost form, you know it when you touch it. I snap a group photo, whiteboard full of arrows, the AVC sticker glowing, SOP pinned to the tool rack with 2 binder clips. No peace signs, no tough guy faces. We stand straight as if our spines were rulers. Class breaks. Boots tick the concrete on the walk back to barracks, a steady sentence fading down the slab. Morales lingers. She sets the SOP stack down, taps a pencil. You didn't say when today, she notes. I've never needed it, I say. She studies the dark row of drones. You worried Whitaker comes back. I shake my head. Concerned, not scared, people change, systems either change or crack. AVC exists so it won't crack. Morales gives a rare, thin smile like new wire while we pack. A silhouette pauses just at the edge of the light, the way you pause on a porch to listen to music from inside. Whitaker. No tie, sleeves rolled, no words for a minute. Then a small nod, the kind you give a mirror. I don't call his name. He steps back into the dark, where the night wind smells less like iron. I think of that rotor scratch, the thing that won't down a drone but still says a replacement day is coming. Reed locks the tool cabinet and adds one more AVC sticker to the door. For luck, he says. I lift the steel mug and pour the last coffee into a fresh cup. Instead of drinking, I set it on the SOP's top edge beside the final line. Audit light. Delete on time. A little weight to keep the page from flying. This is for whoever draws the late watch, I tell Reed. So they remember to open one more tab before hitting send. He nods, solemn as the moment he throws the switch to send the swarm up. I take one last look. Cables coiled, whiteboard dry, screens folded down like sleeping eyelids. The flight line breathes deep. Above, the desert sky is wide, undecorated, quiet. Somewhere out there, dusty boots will stand on decisions we sign. I think of Dad, the mechanic bowing to a mysterious rattle, of Morales tapping a pencil where praise could be, of Reed straightening a crooked sticker. I think of the rookies walking away with a brand new sense. I pull the door, kill the lights. The dark settles like a letter folded in half. At the jam, I touch the open annex poster, dry ink, toothy paper, real enough to loosen something tight in my chest. I say it out loud, to no one but myself, like a private oath. Data has no rank.